Hi everyone, this is John. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem video. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 142. I was white here, played e4, and we went into the French defense. So here, let's put up the opening book. You see we're playing the main moves here, d4, d5, knight c3, allowing either the win hour with the bishop move, bishop b4, the Rubinstein d takes e4, or the classical knight f6. So my opponent selected the classical, and now I played the main move, bishop g5. I had been experimenting previously with e5, the Steinitz variation, but bishop g5 is the main move here. And then bishop e7, I thought that was the main move here. It looks like d takes e4. That was another interesting way to play, and also bishop to b4. But this is what I've seen many times before. So I play e5, and the knight has to move away, and you get to trade off the dark squared bishop, which in this pawn structure is black's good bishop. The dark squared bishop, peeks out on these holes, and the light squared bishop is his bad bishop. So this gives you some advantage here, but not as much as you might think. It still requires careful play, and you see the chess engine is not particularly impressed with the position. So f4 is a normal move, and then the idea, I should just say, is that you need to support these pawns, because typically black will play the move c5 and start undermining him, and once this d pawn is gone, then the e pawn is very weak. So if you can get in the move f4 in a French defense, it's often a good idea. It's just not always possible. Sometimes the knight's there blocking it, for example. So and the normal move here is castle or a6, and play would continue. But my opponent plays f5. And now we're out of the opening book, so let's just look at the notation here. What the chess engine points out is that queen h5 is an interesting move here. Let's take a look at this variation. Queen h5 check, and g6 to block the check and maybe retain some castling chances, and then the queen could retreat back to h3 or go forward to h6 and sort of be a thorn in black's side there. So an interesting way to play. I didn't actually even think about that during the game. So when you see this move f5, though, I guess you should always think about this check on the diagonal. Any move of the f-pawn, of course, opens up this diagonal on the king. So that's probably the first thing I should have thought about. I was more thinking about whether I should take en passant or not, which is an interesting question. The chess engine doesn't think that's the best move, but it's not a bad move. You see there's still some advantage to white. And I have long-term pressure against this backwards e-pawn, so it's not a bad way to play, I think. Knight takes f6, bishop d3. So we're making some developing moves, and the position is staying in the range of about even. Although it didn't like castles here. This is a point I was thinking about during the game before I played castles. This pawn is hanging, and yeah, the chess engine says I should just defend it with knight f3. That's probably the normal move here. I felt like doing something a little different, I guess. I'm not sure why. I mean, I knew the pawn was hanging, and I thought, well, maybe I can just castle here. Maybe I wasn't sure if the knight really belonged in f3, but that's a logical developing move, so it makes sense to put it there. Anyway, this is what I played. So he could have grabbed the pawn here, and then I would have played bishop takes h7 check. That was my idea. And he could take either with the knight or the king. It says knight is better, and I take here. And I thought, well, I've lost my bishop, but his bishop is not particularly good, and his king is exposed. But the chess engine is not impressed. It continues with c5, queen d3, and rook takes f4. So let's check that out. c5. Why not queen e3? Oh, because queen e3, this is an interesting point. So I have trouble defending this pawn. So queen e3 allows the fork pawn to d4, forking the queen and the knight. And what about if the queen goes to this square? It just turns out, I guess, there's not many squares to defend that pawn from. And now the queen has to run away. So it's taking advantage of the weak f-pawn here. So if we back up to this position, castling was a mistake here, and knight f3 was the move to play. Anyway, yeah, I didn't like knight f3 followed by knight b5, and I thought I would have to suffer something with the bishop, so I was trying to get in a quick castle and so the bishop could move when he plays knight b4, I mean. But he played knight b4 anyway, so I moved the bishop away, and the game continues like this. See the advantage going back and forth. I guess there's some imprecise moves in here. So that's the way it is when you're playing blitz chess. But I seem to keep some slight edge along here, and I thought this is an interesting way to proceed with the attack, advance the pawns. But I was having trouble figuring out here what the best way to go was. But let's back up. Suddenly my advantage jumped up. Yeah. So here, I guess, is maybe the beginning of the downfall of black in this game. Instead of playing knight e4, I would have taken. Maybe this wasn't too appetizing. Pawn takes, d takes, and then knight to e5. And he's got this weak isolated pawn. Now it says he could play e3 and just give it away, or bishop to a4. Yeah, so maybe he has some activity with his pieces to make up for losing this pawn. So maybe a more dynamic way to play. Otherwise, the knight just has to retreat. It's not particularly good. I was thinking he might play this move, knight h5. And then I have some kind of discovery with this knight. But it says, well, I was thinking after knight e5, he could just hop in here to g3, which, yeah, knight e5, knight g3. Oh, so this is still playable apparently. Knight e5, knight g3, rook h to e1, and then say takes the bishop. Queen or rook takes. 1, 2, 3. I mean, the pawns are even. C takes d4, rook takes d4. Just, I guess white has a slightly better position. He certainly has more space, and black still has the problem bishop. So that would have been a way to play. And the advantage grows. Okay, so as we look at this more, and as you look at it more deeply, it looks like white just has an advantage here anyway. So after g5, well, knight e4. Knight e4 was a way to for the best play. He played knight e8, and after this, I have a pretty significant advantage. I get a strong knight, and he still has his backwards bishop and his backwards pawn. And so he trades pawns and attacks my queen. But this was actually a mistake. And now there's a very nice tactical sequence here, which I missed in the game. But I wanted to explore it here with the help of the chess engine. So my queen is under attack, but I can take this pawn and attack his queen. And so if he grabs my queen, I grab his queen with check, and then the king moves, and then I grab the knight. Is that what's happening? So let's see. This is one idea. He takes the queen, I take the queen with check. Where can the king go? The king goes to f8, attacking my knight. And knight takes c8. Knight takes, oh, I get a rook. That's why this is good. Bishop takes c8, and then I get another knight. So yeah, this is just way good. So he can't take the can't take my queen. I guess that's the problem, is that when I take his queen, not only is it check, but it also attacks the knight. So he can't play knight d4. So his other try is to move the queen. Queen to d8 is best. And then knight to e7 check. Forking the king and the rook. Queen takes. And queen takes d7. Ah, that's the other point. So yeah, there was more going on tactically than I realized. So taking this pawn with an attack on the queen, and with the idea that if the queen moves away, you can give up the knight with tempo, and you've opened up the attack on the bishop there. Queen takes d7. And rook c7, queen takes e7. So let's go ahead and follow this all the way out. Rook c7, queen takes e7, rook or knight takes e7. Say knight takes e7 is best. And it's 2 rooks and 2 knights against 2 rooks, a knight and a bishop. Why is this so good for white? Bishop to c4. Is it just at the end of all this I start winning material? Oh, that was b5. Bishop to c4. Knight d5 and rook takes d5. Oh, okay. Well, finally we get to a. So that was some really deep tactic there. Sorry, rook takes, pawn takes, and bishop takes with a fork. So that was too deep to see in a blitz game, and that would take quite a bit of thinking even in a slow game. So, but an interesting tactical sequence there. So he played knight c6. Yeah, so that's a tactical sequence starting with knight d5. And you have to calculate pretty deeply to see that you come out ahead, because it looks like the material stays even up until the very end when you finally get this fork between the rook over here and the king over here, after clearing out all this stuff in the center with the exchanges. So pretty interesting. Didn't see that. I just played knight takes c6 after some thought. Still good for me. It's just not the quickest win. Bishop takes c6, and bring my rook over to apply more pressure to the center. The one problem I had in this position was I didn't see how these pawns were going to break through with a decisive attack on the king. So I switched my attention to the center, and then bishop g4, putting pressure on the backwards e-pawn, which has been a feature of this position since he played that move f5 in the near the opening. And now he defends here with bishop d7, and that's just not a sufficient defense. Let's see, knight e4 is the best trying to block things up, and of course that would lose material. Just a pawn though. Knight takes, d takes, and queen takes b6, or why don't I? Oh, because the bishop is guarding it. Queen takes b6 or c4, and white's better here. These pawns are doubled and weak, and so white has targets, and his pieces are well placed, and this is still a bad bishop. So good for white. But after bishop d7, though, there's a more immediate way to win, which is to notice that because of the pin here, I can play the move knight takes d5, which I did. And then he played a move rook c4, which is a blunder, but it turns out there's no good moves here. The best move here was queen d8. And if you look at this sequence, knight takes b6, forking the two rooks, and it just goes downhill from there. Knight b5, queen e3, just buying a little bit of time. Knight c3 check. Okay, so he's giving up material to try and escape. And rook to b8. Pinning the knight, just trying to escape this way. And then bishop takes e6 check. This idea comes in again, the check with the light squares. So this is all, and this bishop is pinned, so he's in trouble here. So it was all losing at this point. So this move rook c4 was a slightly worse move than the other move because it allows knight takes e7 check, which I played. And my opponent resigned here because after his king moves, I'm free to move my queen away, and so just a queen up. So anyway, I thought there were some interesting moments in that game. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and leave any comments you have in the section below. I'll see you again later. Bye.